week or so.
Harrison Jones comes to hand.
Harrison Jones indeed, suggesting again a kind of control shaman style deck coming out from SilverName, and going to be a complete whiff in this matchup unless there is a random Medivh chilling in Jowen's Priest deck. But with the Primordial Drake on deck, it's going to look like this is Dragon Priest, in which case no such Medivh will
Bigger
be in
clue
place.
emerges.
Yes, indeed.
Netherspite Historian, obviously only playable with dragons in the real world, so looks like Dragon Priest.
Really want a 2-mana 1/3.
Sort of thing. Sounds good.
Yeah.
No. Given that there's lots of 1-mana 1/3s out there.
They're always starting to get a good chunk of them. Like the 1-mana 1/3 is a really, really scary stat line to be able to snowball. You know, we've seen it in Zoo. Just, you know, Zoo back in the day with 1-mana 1/3s was able to compete a little bit against Hunter because it was so efficient to trade them up with buffs.
Yep.
We're now seeing it with the Murloc Paladin where they go Vilefin Inquisitor. And then suddenly when you've got a 2-mana 2/3 that buffs your dude +1/+1, then a 1-mana 1/3 seems like kind of a ridiculous stat line. They're a very dangerous card to have in the game, 1-mana 1/3.
What about a 1-mana 1/3 that gets bigger as the game goes on?
Those are also
we could
quite
build a deck
scary,
around
yeah.
that one.
You
as
might
well.
be able to, yeah.
Right, so the Shaman has the Water Speaker in there, so it's going to be a very control-y variant, as you pointed out with the Harrison, versus just Dragon Priest, which gets a lot of value, which might actually cause some trouble here.
Yeah, settle in, boys. It's going to be a value battle more than likely. I will go out on a limb and say that we are probably looking at Spirit Echo from SilverName, just based on the minions and cards that we've seen so far. Jinyu Water Speaker is a card that you usually pair with that Spirit Echo, just because of the amount of repeated value you can get from the Battle Cry. And then Harrison Jones itself is not, you know, a card with any particular synergy with Spirit Echo, unless you want to get really memey about things. But still, it's an indicator towards a control strategy, which then leads you down the path of thinking that, you know, maybe we're looking at volcanoes and ancestral spirits and spirit echoes and whatever else we can come up with.
Might be a while. And Isira just adding to that value for much, much later than now. Remember these words in 25 minutes' time.
Yeah, and Australia there just had to kind of make a soul read. Their only information so far is turn 1 pass.
Right, with coin.
With coin, exactly. So that is a decent read nonetheless, that you would not facing an aggressive Shaman. No 1-drop, no 2-drop into 2-drop. Yep. Those are already clues that you have. So a decent indication already from Russia that they are going to be packing a pretty slow deck here, and Australia just going with the Isera, over which were admittedly some other fairly poor choices.
And Russia doing the same stuff. They're coining out the mana tide because they know that either it baits the Shadow Word Pain and costs 3 mana, or it just sits there and gets a whole chunk of cards.
Yeah, coin Mana Tide Totem into a Shadow Word Pain is actually a good exchange for you, because your only expenditure really is your coin. Like, you've played Mana Tide Totem, you've cycled it into a new card, and then as you said, your opponent doesn't even gain any tempo from Shadow Word Paining it most of the time, because it's their 3 mana turn that they have to entirely spend on that Shadow Word Pain a lot of the time, unless there is a Radiant Elemental to go alongside it. That's the one thing that can really break the tie.
Russia here are playing Jades as well, so they are going, if the game goes long, they're going to be exert some pressure. The Jades in Shaman aren't particularly scary until a lot later in the game, but slowly but surely they sneak up on you.
Yeah, and they are when you start to slap Spirit Echo on them, because then suddenly you get into the world where, let's say you play Jade Spirit as a 2/3 and a 5/5. You not only with the Spirit Echo then get that 5/5 back, you also get the new activator, which will then summon a 6/6 for you the next time it goes down. So this kind of allows you to get almost triple value out of each of your Jade activators.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Raven earlier that it's a bit like Bran Bronzebeard.
I actually made that same point with Raven earlier as well.
Okay, well, Raven should know then.
You can tell why we like each other, can't you?
Raven, you should know exactly what Bran Bronzebeard did, but it's more than that as well.
Yes.
Because you do fill up your hand with just the same stuff that died.
Right, yeah, the point I made being is that Shaman really needed a replacement for Bran, whereas Druid didn't. Like, Druid can still go huge exactly as we saw in that previous game, whereas without Bran, unless you want to put some of the really weak cards into your deck as Shaman, then suddenly you're only kind of pushing that 5/5/6/6 mark with the Jades. That's not really big enough to win a game. So suddenly Spirit Echo has come in to replace Bran, get them up towards that 8/8, 9/9, 10/10 game winning size.
So something that Russia are doing here in this value war is they're dominating the board.
Yes.
Which means that Australia will have to use their cards less efficiently. That's another way of winning a value game.
It is. This is something that I have heard put the best by Zalay, a very popular and accomplished
Everything.
Everything. Yeah, North American player was what I was going to go with, but everything works just fine. Excellent caster as well. Huge, many strings to his bow and a very impressive resume. And he first used a phrase which I really, really like, which is the value of going face.
Right.
Where you know, going face is, supposed to be the tempo play, the aggressive play. People don't see it as a value line. But as you said, by being the aggressor, the man in control, you suddenly force your opponent to be more panicky.
Yeah.
And use their cards for less value overall. So suddenly, just you being aggressive and hitting the opponent in the face can actually lead to a value advantage in the long run because you force high-value cards for little value.
Like they may have to Dragonfire a potion, only 2 minions, whereas if you're the guy in front, you can just chill and Dragonfire for 4 minions.
Right.
That is just all eating up your value. And that's why Russia have got this lead at the moment.
And there is the Spirit Echo. We don't have to theorize anymore. That bad boy is there, confirmed, and this is going to be a very, very difficult deck to beat on value. But if there is a deck that we have historically said is very, very difficult to beat on value, it is Dragon Priest, Neil. So where do we stand in this matchup?
Am I allowed to say on air? No. Anyway, we stand somewhere. Okay. It's not pleasant. So Dragon Operatives into Isiras and Operatives, that is where the Priest can still get a whole chunk of value. Nothing's happening anytime soon.
No.
And Operative, we've just been talking about pressure. Operative is a very, very efficient way of putting pressure on. It has vanilla minion stats with a non-vanilla minion ability.
Premium vanilla minion stat.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And if Draconid Operative can come down here and maybe just nab that second Spirit Echo from the deck that is most likely in there.
Oh, don't even do that.
Then suddenly look at this board that you would get to slap Spirit Echo on if that happens.
That would be absolutely absurd and would definitely be a way for, I was going to say Australia to get back into this match. I mean, they're not exactly out of it by any stretch, but that'd be a way for them to start getting back the value advantage that they maybe surrendered for the time being. Yeah,
I honestly don't know who is naturally favored in this matchup. Like I said, Dragon Priest is not one of the Priest decks that I've messed around with too much. And of course, this being a very rare matchup on the other side, haven't run into this too much.
Played by 8 of the best players in the world against each other, yeah.
But, you can actually just work this out, which is a technique that Life Coach actually originally introduced to me, which seems really obvious, but I'd never thought about or heard of any other players doing it, where you just take 2 deck lists and you literally count all the stats of every minion that you can potentially get, and then for cards that don't quite pigeonhole like that, you come up with a rough estimate of the average value of it, you add that number up, and then straight away, you have a game plan. You have one number that's higher than the other, and that says, okay, if this comes down to card value, this deck wins. So the other deck has to be the aggressor, has to do something different, has to do something special in that form.
I think the reason that this one's harder to apply that method to, which I think is fantastic, by the way, is it's so muddied by not only getting a Draconid Operative, but maybe getting another one from it, or maybe not, etc. So you've got to put all the value on all of the card draws that you get.
How do you assess the average value of a Draconid Operative, of a Netherspite Historian, of a Spirit Echo, right? Like,
I mean, you could do it. If you were told to calculate that one card once, you could do it by spending a few days on it. But you've got to do it for every card in the deck. So there's no real rough and ready guide, which is why we're sitting here going, we're not quite sure who's favourite here.
Yeah. And it is
complicated as anything.
It really is just going to be an endless late-game grind at this point. Both players just trying to absolutely shovel as much value as they can into their greedy little mouths and seeing who can get over the line. But right now, it's the inverse situation of what you brought up earlier, where it's Australia who are forcing pressure, and now it's on the onus is on Russia to have to deal with this board state, or just continue developing and try and stall for as long as they can. Because, again, they want to get these Jades up to a reasonable size before they even fire off the Spirit Echo, just so the Spirit Echo hits, the actual Jade minion itself is a 4-4 or a 5-5, as opposed to just Spirit Echoing this 2-2 back to their hand.
And I think the team element will come in as well here, where you've got 4 of the top players on each team, and it's like, hey, don't know much about this matchup. Maybe assign somebody to go, right, you've got 5 turns. Go work out the matchup quick. Tell us what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to scramble for value because that's the obvious thing we need to do. But if we've made a mistake and we suddenly need to turn aggressive because you've worked out the other guy can outvalue us, go away and do things and work this stuff out for us.
Possible.
I mean, obviously, we're talking about very, very skilled players. They will know the matchup to some degree. But maybe on a higher level, somebody needs to go away and work out when you need to change.
Yeah, I think, you know, more importantly, if they're bringing this deck to the tournament, you know, at least 1 or 2 of the players on the team will have put in a lot of hours with it over at least the last week to be able to get to this position. You know, Dragon Priest is a much more standard deck, so there's a good chance that Australia have played this matchup from their side. And as I said, you know, Russia, if they're bringing this, will have put in many, many games of it themselves. People who watch SilverName, of course, who is one of the biggest streamers, will be able to know if he's played a good chunk of this deck on stream. And I'm sure he has, if he's feeling comfortable to bring it to this position. So they will more than likely have a stronger feeling about how this matchup plays out than we do.
So looking at the casting costs in hand is kind of interesting. Obviously, first of all, Australia have got that pressure advantage right now. They also have Isera, they also have Dragonfire Potion. That's kind of it for them, though. There's an emergency Hex. Meanwhile, Russia have this weird mid-range hand, which in a minute they're going to have to do 2 or 3 things in one turn, I suspect, to attempt to stave off this attack that's coming in on them.
Yeah, they're really looking for a turn where they go Jade Activator minion, plus some other value minion, plus 0 mana thing from below, plus Spirit Echo all in the same turn. That becomes easier and easier to do, of course, as you get up towards 8, 9, 10 mana. And easier to do as you continue to discount your thing from below. But that's how you get maximum value. You really, really want to hit a Jade Activator with your Spirit Claws. Like 100% that is priority number 1. But it depends how long you can wait, because you're not in the position where you're ahead on board, so you can choose to stack a Spirit Echo over 2 turns, for example. You're not in a position where, you know, one set of minions stick because you're ahead on board. You then add more minions and then Spirit Echo your 2-turn board. That's not going to work because you're just a mile behind.
Meanwhile, Australia's bluffing that they've got things to do. They're kind of all in at this point. They're not. They're just buying some time, so they're not all in at all. They've got loads of stuff to come. But they're sitting here going, look at our scary 8-card hand.
Oh, boy. So, on average, an 8-drop is significantly less dangerous and has significantly less health than Isera in this spot. You have double Maelstrom Portal and Lightning Storm to be able to try and push through this, but that's not going to be enough to get the job done. And of course, the Hex isn't there. How often can you actually let this Isera hit another card, is my question.
Yeah, they're on your side. It's not often because, again, from Russia's side, this is what I say about Australia bluffing this hand.
What did I say about significantly less dangerous than an Isera? That is a boogie monster.
That is indeed a boogie monster. Most scorned card ever.
Yeah. Unlike all the other most scorned cards in history, though, it is yet to find its home in Quest Rogue as of yet.
It's not off to the orphanage. It's so bad even the orphanage won't take it in.
Exactly. The Valera home for damaged children.
Sounds like a particularly bad movie. I should get right in. Okay.
Just going to leave the Boogie Monster chilling for now. So we are actually going to see potentially the first outing in competitive Hearthstone of a Boogie Monster actually attacking for value.
Go, Boogie Monster, go. Oh. And he may even get healed afterwards.
It might. Cleric pickup is a big deal. The Dream being the only card being picked up from Isera is not amazing. They would have loved an Awakens, most likely. Emerald Drake, almost always universally liked when you just get a 4-mana 7/6 in your hand. Pretty solid. But Dream is not the end of the world because, of course, Spirit Echo is a slow card to activate. You have to set it up, then the minions have to die, then you get your value. It doesn't have the immediacy of anything else. And Jowen's actually just going to say, hey, you know what? I just want that Manatide Totem. I was going to suggest that it actually reduces a lot of value from the Spirit Echo play because you just dream it back to the hand and it loses the Death Rattle. But yeah, in this spot, sure, still a Manatide. Mine.
What are they looking for with Shadow Visions right now, do you think? So I'm concerned about Australia's long-term value. There probably isn't an Elise, is that right? There could be.
In Dragon Priest?
Yeah.
There most likely is.
Likely is now, okay. Yeah. So that would be what they're after then, is getting Elise. Surprising they cast Shadow Visions rather than waiting.
Yeah, they still have one in hand, and Shadow Visions can find Power Word Shield, which then actually pulls you closer to the Elise in the end, so that seems reasonable.
Volcanoes were predicted, and volcanoes have occurred, doing a lot of damage of health there. Obviously, I know they're supposed to do 15, but it got something like 12 or 13 out of that.
What was there? It was an 8, a 3, a 2, and a 1.
Try and prove me wrong.
Yeah, a 14, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Near enough.
Yeah, something like that. There was definitely within bounds because Russia Snap called it. They didn't go with the Maelstrom Portal first, which would have been the efficient way to do it if they needed the extra damage. The Maelstrom, even though you then snipe your minion that's in play, you generally only add 1 health to the board by Maelstroming first, but you take away 4. So your clear becomes more efficient if there's 4 minions on board. But they Snap called, instantly spotted that the Volcano was a full clear anyway. But I can't believe I'm about to say these words in Hearthstone Global Games, but they needed an answer to that Boogie Monster. They actually did. Boogie Monster was going to threaten to end the game over a couple of turns there.
Yeah, the world's worst fledgling. It's like just does the same thing as fledgling, but over 27 turns.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to attack minions 3 or 4 times and then attack the face.
Which is fine against Shaman, right?
I guess.
There's going to be minions there, or stop them from hero powering.
Let's stop talking about Boogie Monster. He's already had far more attention than it deserves.
You're such a cruel, cruel man, Zottel.
Yeah.
He was having his moment in the sun. I doubt he liked it much, actually. He's probably back under somebody's bed now. Anyway, the value seems to be going to Australia. Looking at this hand, Bookworm's a value card. Shadow Vision's a value card coming up at some point. The Potion is a value card. Meanwhile, on Russia's side, they do still have that Spirit Echo.
Spirit Echo is one hell of a value card.
And the Jade does count. The Jade Lightning will be valuable at some point.
Yes. I mean, that 0 mana thing from below is there. I think we've only seen 1 Jade Spirit and 1 Jade Chieftain get played.
Right.
So if this thing from below gets down to 0, either of those cards are available. He can go Jade Chieftain, 0 mana thing from below, Spirit Echo the whole bunch. Of course, if Jade Spirit gets drawn, that's the same thing, but for so much cheaper that he can squeeze in some other minions as well.
And they are being greedy because they can afford to be. Both players still on 30 health after this marathon game so far with just this posturing that's been going on, basically.
Yeah.
And still, SilverName's just going to hold on in there and wait for this Spirit Echo to get as many Jades as possible. And Australia doing the same thing. They're just not in any hurry to waste any spells. Why would they be?
That would be the other concern for Australia as well, as to why you saw Shadow Visions being cast without looking for the Elise pack as it is in there, is if they could find a 3rd copy of Dragonfire Potion off the Shadow Visions, then that'll help them to contest multiple Jade boards over time. But here, a Jade minion has stuck and a Jade activator is drawn. This looks like a Spirit Echo turn to me, Lorinda.
Thing from below is going to Thing as well. They got it down to 0 just in time for this.
Yep.
And now the only question is, there's no way of being even greedier, right? I was always going to cost 6.
There's always a way to be greedier.
Okay.
But no.
Yeah, because it's going to make a big board at the same time as the Echo. And Australia are going to be all hands on deck to press that Dragonfire Potion.
I think the only legitimate concern here for Russia is just hand size complaints, because there are going to be 5 bodies on the board that get Spirit Echoed and 4 cards in hand. So they're actually going to be just fine, I believe.
That's why they're thinking about this Thing from below. Exactly that. They're trying to work out whether they actually want another 0-cost Thing from below in their hand.
I'm not entirely sure why they wouldn't. I mean, yes, like Dragonfire Potion is a card that's very, very strong against this board, but it's a 0 mana card that you can play, and then you just immediately get back anyway as another 0 mana 5/5. So what difference does it make? I don't
know.
Yep, there we go. Good job.
Again, a good aspect of the team work there, where somebody somewhere said, we're not sure if we want to get a 0 mana Thing from below, for whatever reason. Somebody's made that call. So SilverName got on with doing all the rest of the turn whilst that conversation was taking place, most likely.
Yeah.
So that when somebody says, yes, it's good, carry on.
Ding.
He didn't cost himself any time there. The dings go out to my left.
Harrison Jones is the whiff in this matchup, and importantly, that Hex that we haven't really mentioned that he picked up off the Operative early did deny the Jade activator from actually getting Spirit Echoed. Not only did it kill a 6/6 Jade that would have death rattled out of the eye.
Killed a 7/7 and an 8/8 and a 9/9 as well. 7/7 and 8/8 as well.
Yes, killed a 5/3, a 7/7 and an 8/8.
That's a good Hex for a priest.
It killed a 5/3, a 6/6, a 7/7 and an 8/8. That's pretty strong value.
Some stats. I'm still finding it amusing, the posturing that's gone on here. There's obviously been some significant blows struck with that Spirit Echo, but it still looks pretty even in terms of when you go through the hands and look at what value's going on.
It does. And a real big deal of it will be whether A, there is a second Spirit Echo in the deck, and B, whether it gets to it in time, because it's not a given that 2 get played in this deck. Quite often 1 is just enough, and drawing 2 in the same hand gets enormously
Would the
funky a lot
Harrison
of the
indicate
time.
maybe there isn't a second one?
It's a good question. When I have run into this deck on ladder, I have got consistently Harrison. So I believe that there is just someone has come up with this list that had Harrison in it. I know Show has been credited with doing a lot of work on control style shamans.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it's his list, but I have primarily encountered Harrison Jones just by default when I have come up against this deck.
Okay. Just here comes more Jades, but they haven't reached back-breaking proportions yet. There's still a Shadow Word Death in hand, and Dragonfire will still deal with them, but maybe 1 or 2 more down the road, and they are going to start getting out of hand.
Yeah, we'll see. That Dragonfire Potion actually being drawn and not found off the Shadow Visions is kind of a big deal, because it essentially limits the amount of Dragonfire Potions in the deck by 1. So it's actually going to significantly impact Australia's board clearing abilities over the next 2 or 3 turns combined. And now the Jade minions are starting to become too big to even interact with that Dragonfire Potion.
And now it's the point where Australia have got to say, hang on, if we leave this Dragonfire Potion too much longer, the value actually starts to go down and not up.
Correct.
We won't be able to deal with things anymore. So the maximum efficiency we're going to get from it is about now.
And SilverName and Russia will be considering that as well and saying, okay, I need to present a board right now that I'm just kind of okay with my opponent Dragonfire Potioning. Like, what's the minimum amount I can put on this board that my opponent will Dragonfire Potion, but that I am okay with it happening?
And that's about the number.
That looks
Both
about
sides,
right, yeah.
Both sides will be comfortable with this potion, you would think. No. Australia are going to do the thing. You know what? I know you want me to Dragonfire Potion, so I'm going to push it 1 more card.
Exactly. Shadow of Death can take care of the largest minion in play. Potion of Madness, not great value here, but can be eventually an answer to that 2/4. So Australia might be just seeing that they can pick this board apart piece by piece for a turn or 2 yet. Not any real amount of burst damage that needs accounting for in this deck from Russia, and Australia will know that. It's just purely hold the board, keep the board, never let go forever. Jade Lightning is basically the extent of the burst damage in the deck.
They are starting to get into their last resource, though, which is their health total.
Yes.
They're starting to having to use every resource, whereas Russia, although their hand is kind of lightweight, still has Jades in the deck that are just going to get progressively more silly. And again, possibly, as you keep calling, that second Spirit Echo would be an absolute killer if they have it in there.
Yeah, again, not sure whether it will be there or not. It's incredibly greedy. There is a Black Knight in this Dragon Priest, by the way. But, SilverName, again, this is where kind of the greedy line from the deck that's holding the AoE is often very, very want to fail, because Russia know exactly what's up here, and what is up is that they can quite happily just push 6 to 13 damage each turn, however much of this gets to go face after they control the board. That's fine. They can do that every game for the rest of the game, every turn for the rest of the game, and if the status quo is maintained, they win this exchange. So if Australia's goal here is to get greedier with the Dragonfire Potion, it just doesn't look likely that SilverName is going to commit any more resources.
Yeah, it's just that standoff where Russia have all the advantages in their favour. Just in case you've joined in the middle of this marathon game, Russia are 1-0, Australia are 0-1. This is game 5 of a best of 5, so mighty, mighty important how these next 3 or 4 turns pan out.
And again, the death is used in the end on the largest minion, but I think Russia once again just says, hey, I pushed 8 this turn. Your turn, friend.
Right. And this is high-level play. This is what high-level players do. Both teams know what's going on here, but Russia know that they're the ones who have to be dealt with.
Yeah,
Australia know there's things from below in the hand.
Right. They know there's a 4/4 Jade Golem. They know there's a Jinyu Water Speaker. Those cards have been Spirit Echoed. So they know that there is reload in hand if this board gets AoE'd, and they are trying desperately to just hold on to every resource they can. But as the classic idiom goes, if both players are doing nothing, then one of you is wrong.
You calling me an idiom?
Yes.
Okay. Thought you might be.
8 out of 10.
A Jade Chieftain showing just how these Jades are so menacing as this game gets down to the last 6 cards in each deck. And suddenly the value game, as we said right at the start, the Jades just start to get the advantage in the very, very long run because the cards are so abusive later on.
And 7/7 inside the Chieftain, I believe. So with the deaths used, it's out of range of Dragonfire Potion. But this board state is looking pretty juicy for some of this AoE that has just not been needed to be used from SilverName in any of these positions so far.
Just thinking, if there isn't a lease, that would make a difference still. That is maybe the one card that Australia can hope for, because getting an Elise, they still have the Shadow Visions, which possibly implies they do have the Elise because they haven't played it. And they would have played it with only 6 cards left. They were looking for anything else in their deck at this point, I feel.
Hits the fort. So if Russia want to here, they can 100% more or less force this Dragonfire Potion.
Right.
They can just get rid of this Drake and push face and play one more minion, have the world's cleanest lethal setup set up, and just say, all right, we've danced this waltz long enough, Australia. It's time for you to Dragonfire Potion this board. Nope. Nope. They say no.
Wow. Just casually leaving it 1 off lethal there.
Mm-hmm. Does it anyway. Respects it. Respects the damage from hand in the form of potentially second Jade Claws even ending the game. So
it's a whiff, but it doesn't matter much at this point, I don't think. This Jade Chieftain's going to create a lot of damage, and plus whatever else Russia even choose to stick on the board.
Well, key point, this large gentleman that's going to come out of the Jade Chieftain is a taunt minion.
Okay.
Which means that the particular gentleman in hand for Jowen and for Australia is going to be able to get value. But okay, Jade Chieftain not being played here, I think, is a clear signal that there is more value generation going on in the deck. Right? Like,
right. Yeah, why else otherwise? Yeah.
It seems strange otherwise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Unless they're respecting that everything in Australia's hand is trying to kill you.
Unless they just have the ultimate soul read on Black Knight. Like, that is also...
Like, just respect that everything Australia's trying to kill you, that involves Black Knights, and Shadow Word Deaths, and more Shadow Word Deaths.
But the 4/4 and 3/6, yet again, just does not even really represent lethal on the board. Australia chose to respect the threat of lethal on the previous turn, and this board is awkward to deal with. The Bookworm is not active to be able to take care of the 3/6. So they're in a kind of a mess here, and they do represent, if there's no heal to face, at least second Jade Lightning lethal, which I believe is still hanging around in the deck. We might have seen both already. I'm
pretty sure there's a lease as well, Joe, and every pickup now is just getting more and more like flustered. There is the Spirit Echo, as called by myself a moment ago.
Check the tapes. Come on. Wow.
And that is looking suspiciously like the beginning of the end of the end. We've already got to the middle of the end, I think.
Whoa, is he just going to jam it? Is he just going to jam the Chieftain? Is it finally time to set up lethal this turn? Nope.
No. This is just 12-turn extended BM at this point.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Oh. Extra stuff, though.
Ooh,
the operative, well, there's still cards in the opponent's deck.
A 1/1, a weapon with a 1/1, or a 2/3 with a 1/1.
I don't think Joe's going to be very happy with the fact that his opponent's deck is full of Jade minions at this point.
No.
How is that fair when it's a 1/1 for you and your opponent gets like an 8/8?
Because that's how Hearthstone works.
That doesn't seem fair at all.
Come on.
All right. And SilverName's actually sort of smirking here. It's like, why do they keep killing my things? They're going to make me actually have to put something good on the board in a minute.
You know, we've been having fun with this, but I am a little bit confused about why SilverName has turned down the opportunity to represent lethal on about 4 separate turns at this point.
I think he feels that he hasn't got many resources left in his library, and therefore, no matter how small a chance that Elise gets a couple of board clears, that could finish them off. So he's just being uber careful, and we all know that careful can sometimes mean bad. Jowen.
What a game to end the series on, though.